Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Hypercar Hunt. In 2021, Pagani launched the successor to its world infamous Zonda R, the Huayra R, the track-only hypercar focused on one thing, eliminating track records and being the most extreme variant of anything on four wheels you could possibly imagine. The whole point of the R program is to achieve fast lap times. Fast lap times usually means high downforce because it needs to go fast around the twisty stuff. That usually means the top speed is subtracted because downforce, but not in this case. This thing, top speed 218 mile an hour, downforce a ton at its top speed, and that is achieved by having an almighty power unit. We're talking 6 litre V12, and no, it hasn't got turbos, it's naturally aspirated, so it sounds like this. With an engine that sounds that good, the torque rating's got to be pretty impressive as well, 770 Newton meters. That gives you enough grunt in pretty much all of the gears to come out of the corners as fast as humanly possible. Now all that going power, you need a lot of stopping power, and thanks to what's in there, a carbon ceramic brake developed by Brembo specific for this car, the CCM R. Now you see, a lot of people think carbon ceramic is the same all the way around the world in all the different cars. They're not. You see, heat displacement is a very key thing. See, on a GT3 RS or a 488 Pista, those brakes have to be able to get fairly warm on the road and also pretty warm on the track, but they're going to wear out pretty quickly on the track. Whereas on these, specially derived for the track, these things are built to get hot, stay hot for a long period of time. While we're down here, the tyres, specially developed by Pirelli for the R series, these are currently sitting on the wet tyres, but you also obviously have a slick for when it's nice and warm. The Huayra R, being named Huayra, how much of the Huayra road car is there left? Well, it's fairly minimal, but I think they can still call it a Huayra for the simple fact of the design language. It is so obviously a Huayra. It's still beautiful and elegant, it's sleek, it's got certain things like the wing mirrors are still shaped as a lady's eyeball. You've got the cool 2-pod headlights, very similar to a Zonda R, but also this front flying buttress that looks a lot like the Huayra. Hopping into the Huayra R then, instantly you're greeted with a very Pagani-esque door handle, subtly hidden away in this dished area here. You have a little lever that when you pull, much like the Huayra, the doors open in a beautiful upwards fashion. Very snazzy. But then when you look inside, you're greeted with something very interesting. Now, you're very used to seeing a carbon fibre sill just because of the fact it's got a carbon monocoque. In fact, the whole body's carbon, as you can quite clearly see. But what you don't often see, because, well, this is a track car, is a full roll cage inside as well. Now, admittedly, I am not the smallest of chaps, and getting in this probably won't be the easiest thing, but comparing this to a Valkyrie will be very interesting indeed, because, well, we've all seen me trying to get out of a Valkyrie, no small feat there. But first of all, we've got to remove the steering wheel, so before we get in, why don't we take that off and have a little look through the controls. Instantly then, you can see from the steering wheel this big circle. What does that remind you of? Well, how about the centre exhaust part on most of the Zondas? Another clever little design feature. You'll also notice that on every single nut and bolt on every single bit of this car is labelled Pagani. Beautiful. But let's work our way from the left to the right. We've got the radio button, obvious things. Drinks, obvious, although why don't they have a food one? I think it'd be nice if you're paying this sort of money to have someone deliver you some food. Turn signals, obviously left for left, right for right. You've got wash for your windscreen, reset, and obviously you have to operate the dashboard from the controls on the steering wheel as well. So some of these will relate to the dashboard. You've also got the ABS selector switch. You've got the traction control switch, spare, which is obviously a spare button which you can configure, neutral. A lot of people think you just pull both paddles together, but you don't in race cars because it's a pneumatic box. You have a specific button for the neutral. You've got start, believe it or not, that does actually start the car. Page right and left, that's to change the page on the dashboard. Flash, no, that's not something you hope your wife does, that's for the headlights. And pit is the pit lane limiter. Now going from the steering wheel to being inside the car, and yes, it did take me a pretty minute to get in, but instantly it's very comfortable. But one of the things I absolutely love is the fact that Pagani have gone with the new style steering wheel lock, which what that means is, watch this, instead of fiddling around with it, you line it up, you click it in, and boom, you're on. Now being in the car, it's surprising to find that actually Pagani have spent a bit of time trying to still make it feel like a Pagani, because I know that sounds like a really silly thing to say, but this is a out and out track race car. So trying to add leather and Alcantara and all that beautiful stuff really isn't necessary, but Pagani have done it in a nice way, such as the door handles and the grab handles on the doors are both covered in leather and touched with Pagani detailing. The centre dashboard features 2 air conditioning vents that are still made of billet aluminium that you would see straight out of something like a Zonda or a Huayra. Now considering these seats are fitted to someone who is definitely not my build, it is remarkably comfortable in here. Now usually you'd be in a full race suit, helmet, gloves, shoes, the whole 9 yards. And you've got these helmet sides to it as well, so actually when you're fully kitted up this would be remarkably comfortable. Now I can imagine that the passenger seat isn't as moulded as the driver's seat, but even though the guy is probably, well, certainly not my build, I am remarkably comfortable. Now in terms of controls, you have most of your controls dead centre. You've got everything from hazard lights to the fire. You don't press that one unless you're really in trouble. One thing I do find quite interesting is the AC switch goes from off to fan to on. Now what that means is it can just let air from outside in, or it can actually activate air conditioning, but bearing in mind if you're going for them fast laps, that air conditioning pump is probably going to slow you down. You've got your light switch for if you're brave enough to drive the car at night time. You've got your rain lights. You've also got things like engine map, the damper settings, you've got wiper, you've got brightness. Now the brightness would obviously be for the dashboard. You've got reverse. Now remember, you don't just keep pulling paddles, you would go from first to neutral on the steering wheel, and then from neutral you'd press reverse, and that would then engage reverse. ABS RES, that's ABS reset. You've got fuel reset, and you've even got servo. Now servo would probably adjust the braking servo, but admittedly I'm not 100% sure. Now to start the car, which we won't be able to do today, but generally what you would do is you would switch the main electricity source on, you'd flip the ignition switch on, wait for everything to power up, and then you'd hit the start button on the steering wheel and hear all that almighty noise, which we're going to listen to again right this second. We do have to talk about the key factors of the car, that is desirability, usability, performance and value. Now, admittedly, desirability is up there, performance is way up there, usability is a tricky one, so we have to talk about storage just for a laugh. Ready? 3, 2, 1, there isn't any. Because there doesn't need to be any. What are you taking? You're shopping? No. You've got storage in terms of a passenger seat, and I'm pretty sure that's optional as well. So, I mean, you could probably get a shopping bag down in the footwell of the passenger seat. So. Now, summarising this car into only 4 sections, desirability, usability, performance and value, is going to be a very interesting one. But firstly, I want to just say, I know you guys are probably hoping for a startup and to see some engine bits, but this is a full-blown race car, and I am a one-man band, so I cannot take the front clam off or the rear clam. So I have hopefully shown you a few cool bits and shown you a bit of an insight into the Huayra R. But first of all, let's start off in our 4 segments. So then, desirability. This thing in true Pagani style is as desirable as it gets. One of only 30 in the world, and let's face it, if by the time you heard about it, there was no chance anyone could buy it. So it was a Pagani customer only thing. It was a thing that Pagani went, you know what, we want you to have our special car, we will let you spend your money, and that's exactly what they did, and they sold all 30 like that. So as I mentioned before, if you want one now, the premium is significant. So what that means is the desirability factor on this has to score a strong 9.5 out of 10. The second subject then, usability. Now this is a very interesting one because on one way you could say it's unusable because it has to be run by Pagani, it's track only, but then also you could say that usability is the opposite because of how ludicrously amazing it is on track. So it is a really hard thing to put a pin into. To give you guys a bit of an idea, these are run in their pista program, their track program. Basically, you can arrive and drive whenever you want to the set track days. Now, admittedly, when those track days end, it is a set program, whether it be in Barcelona or Silverstone or wherever it may be. Once they end, you are still left with the Huayra R to do with as you please. And Pagani do offer the chance to be able to have a team help you operate your car. But when the car is new, I do believe, now you can correct me on this, but I'm pretty certain that the car has to be looked after by Pagani. Hence why we haven't even been able to switch the ignition onto this, because they can plug the ECU in, see that someone else has been tampering with it, and they can void the warranty. Because believe it or not, this car does come with a warranty, which is quite rare for a track-only car. So then, usability, I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10. A 7 because it's a performance, and it lacks because obviously it is a track-only hypercar. Performance then, the thing that this thing is going to score very highly on. Now, on one end, we could look at it as top speed, but I really think judging this car on top speed alone would be a really stupid thing to do. So performance then. This thing is obviously built for track purpose. I have personally seen these things go around track. These things are setting lap after lap record, and I must admit, well, obviously I've never driven one yet. Maybe Pagani, please shout me, help me, let me drive it, please, come on, please. But anyway, left of the begging. The performance of this car has to be one of the top rated cars that we have ever done, simply because it is the definition of a car company going, what if there were no rules? What if we just built a car to go around a tarmac loop as quickly as humanly possible? And this is the answer, and who knows what will come next. So in terms of a rating, it has to score a 9 out of 10. Value then, an interesting one, because like all Paganis, you can't get them when they're new, unless I've already got one and I haven't told you. Ooh, interesting. But 2.5 million euros brand new. Forget about that price, that is about as relevant as cheese. The second-hand price. Now, it's not an exact market. This thing isn't currently for sale. This is still being used by the owner, as you can see from the sticker saying Barcelona, Nürburgring, and such on. But the value of these are fetching in the region of 4 million euros plus. Now, that is a significant uprise. In true Pagani fashion, look at the Zonda, one of the most important cars of the 21st century, designed by Horacio Pagani, one of the greatest automotive designers in the world, and possibly ever will be. So I'm going to rate this car value-wise on what it is now and what it could be at a strong 8 out of 10. So then, the Huayra R. An absolutely incredible bit of kit, and a really special thanks to ESSA Automotive for letting us poke and prod around this pride and joy. Now, this series is a very exciting series because at the end of it, we are going to end up choosing a new hypercar that will be revealed to you in the final episode. So until then, make sure to subscribe, stay tuned, and I'll see you very soon.